All right, good morning, everyone. We are going to take a presentation of missions this morning. If you are looking for Stephen's theology class, that resumes next week again, and so forth. But this morning, we want to take a look at an overview of who we support, where they're working, and get a glimpse of what missions is like right here, right now at FBC Arlington, okay? If you're on live stream, stay tuned, but a warning, we will come to a point where some of our missionaries, by what they do or where they are, we have deemed to be needing protection, and so we're trying to be sensitive to that, and we will cut our live stream at that point. So, at this point, I'd like to introduce the members of our missions committee. Besides Stephen, who's our elder in charge, we have, not seeing him right here, I thought we would have almost everybody here, but they'll be here later. Larry and Naomi Tanis, they were on for decades and then stepped off for a little while. They're back on. We have the Rathums and joining us, Jim and Jenny Lashua as well joining us, and then Tucker and Kayla Tanis will also be joining. And then my wife's been on for a couple years, and I've been on for like a year. So we got some fresh minds and bodies. Well, maybe not so much bodies, but fresh minds here. So I just say this: if you caught that, we're in a transition time. Two long-term couples, the Steens. Who am I? Steens went to Eastern Oregon. Who's the other one I'm trying to think of? Moses Lake, yeah. Anyway, we had a full revolving kind of door going on there for a little bit. And so we're now heading forward and so forth. So the first question I wanted to ask this morning was, how many of you have been on some kind of a missions trip? 2 weeks, 2 months, whatever. Let me see your hands. Okay, pretty good, all right? We'll talk more about that later, okay? So it's because of those opportunities that my wife and I, a few years back, started that little booth in the missions conference called Got Time. And we'd like to see that kind of stuff gain some momentum, and we also have heard from a number of people that we need to expand that idea, not just for youth going out, but families and maybe men and, at different construction type things, and we can help our missionaries in their ministry by stepping alongside of them. So there's like 4 kinds of levels of churches with missions. 5 if you include the one that doesn't do anything in missions, okay? But there's the first is the sending, you know. The first is praying, giving, all right? We pray for them, we give to them, and so forth, all right? And the third one out of 5, I just changed it, would be ascending. And we've been that since basically Judy Strand left here in 81 or 82, something like that, okay? And we've been doing much better lately with people like Goheen's and Melody Coleman. The 4th level would be churches that are preparing missionaries, okay? And we're gathering that now. We have people that come, stay at the church for years with the goal of being sent out, okay? And so that's a great place. So we're getting into that part. Of course, the top one would be people looking to us as a church to help them become sending, preparing churches as well. Okay, so we're not, we're pretty good. We're in the middle and moving ahead. But the most of the, yes.
I missed one before. It's those fresh minds. Could you refresh this one?
Refreshing is great. Nothing. And then that was the first. Yeah, I just added that in.
Okay, but that was number 5.
That's number 1. Number 2 was giving and praying. The next one was sending, and then preparing, and then you could say encouraging. Where you're encouraging other churches to move their program ahead as well, their ministry. No, thank you for catching that. All right. So at this time, I'd like to change it a little bit. My wife and I are going to stand over here so we're not blocking things too much. And we're going to go down through the 29 missionaries and agencies that we support. And we'll try to give you up to the date. As of last night, Coleman sent out a thing, and we have a little bit of a celebration on that one. And I'll explain why I'm wearing this orange shirt, too. Yeah. Got to turn to page 1. Okay, first up, a couple of status points. Here's 2 pie charts that I made up. As far as locations, we are predominantly in foreign areas, but between United States and Canada, we do have quite a few. Okay? So we have a good balance there, I think. And then ministry types. I just did church planting and then evangelism, discipleship. Okay? That would be including anything, even like the sports ministries where they're directly involved in trying to win, and you're using something as a bridge to do that. Okay? And then education and training. So that's how that splits out. What's interesting, too, I didn't make a pie chart on it, but the ones that grew up here or came and attended here for a while and then went out on the mission field, of our 28 missionaries, 7 of them have that local homegrown flavor, so that's like 25%. So that's, I think, pretty high for most churches. So yeah, let's start with Jim and Kathy Brock, of course. Like we said, they're over near Moses Lake, have been there for years and years and years. I'm not going to read up there. I don't like PowerPoint people that just read the thing. I let you can read it, okay? And they've had some health issues lately over the last few years, but been very, very faithful. And we're going to tag team here between, I'll do the general and she'll do the updates that you could see. So that's a segue into, if you're not on the FBC missions email list, you need to be on it because you'll get all these updates as things go by. Okay?
Okay, with Jim Brock, he says that he is continuing to recover from cancer, and he's actually seeing some measurable progress in that, which is a praise. And they mentioned earlier in the year about their son, Matthew, who was diagnosed with cancer, and he is now cancer-free. So that's a big praise for them. Yeah.
United Indian Mission, I believe.
United Indian Mission. Yeah.
Okay, Melody, we've talked about her. She grew up in the church, got excited at a MATA, if I remember correctly, one of those summer camp things, and it took off from there. And so forth. She's been down on an internship and so forth, is raising support right now, and we got an email last night that...
Yes, currently she's at 80% of her support. She's still hoping to get back to the field November-ish, I think. She did just complete her multi-engine training, and she did that up at MARC. That's Missionary Aviation Training up there, MARC in Soldotna, Alaska. She just finished that. Now she's legal to fly the 2-engine plane that they have down in Palau. And she's also in the process of sorting out final logistics for getting back to Palau, including things like finding an apartment, getting a car, and getting a medical certificate, those kinds of things that she needs to have in place to get back to the field.
Our longtime friends, Gary and Stacy, really local. But anyway, coming from a background of being on the field for years and years and years and so forth, and still as chief flight instructor, okay, and then of course Stacy has to be the one that keeps everybody in tow. So
And from talking with Stacy, I understand that Gary is working on this paperwork to get FAA approval on the curriculum. Is that correct? And then there's a couple that are in Africa that have been trying to get back to the United States. I guess they adopted a African gal, and they're trying to get visa for her to come into the United States. It's been a long time, and so right now the paperwork is being reviewed for visa, so hopefully that'll happen soon, because he's going to be coming. He works with MAF, but he's going to be coming and working as a flight instructor at MATA. And always more students. They've got some students that are graduating, and MATA needs more students. So,
yeah. And if you want to see the ministry, it's just so local. They'll be happy to show you everything, and they've been able to do some upgrades to their facilities and so forth. So it is a really top-notch ministry. Okay. And the Georgievs, okay, Bulgaria, we first met him a few years back when he was in a local ministry with a university, and now he's not only regional, but he's heading up the crew student ministries for all of Bulgaria.
and recently they had a evangelism training workshop where they had 13 volunteers attend. It was a 3-day workshop. And the volunteers were excited to return to their home churches and begin implementing what they had learned there. And they also had an all-staff conference. The theme was Together with God, Together in Missions, and Together in Challenges, and was very uplifting and encouraging to all those that attended.
Taylor and Abby Goheen. Abby was the one that grew up here at the church. They're now down in New Guinea. And they have just finished, I think, the first major run-through. Is that right, Mark? Of the new, I was going to say new tribes, but anyway, Ethnos 360 curriculum in tribal work, and amazing results. It's taken quite a bit of experience and effort and anguish to get the curriculum they put together for the unreached people groups, but it's very well received. It brings everybody from their pagan orientation in mind and works them through to understanding who God is and what they need in salvation. So
from a letter they sent earlier in the summer, they are busy writing lessons, working on translating the Bible, doing some homeschooling, and then tackling a really big project because their house needed major, major repairs. I mean, we're talking water system, batteries, walls, windows. I mean, so they're working on that, so it's everything all together, so it's a lot of work.
And here's one we know a little bit more about. And the reason I'm wearing this orange shirt, so James went up about 14 years ago to Canada, found this young lady from Ontario, and as you can see, other things followed. Right now, he's not working with a school that he's had for the last 2-3 years. That ministry strategy wasn't working out with the way the school was going and things like that, so they're in the midst of trying to figure out exactly what kind of strategies to use as far as youth work and family ministries. To explain the shirt, I'll go over here. to explain this shirt, one of the difficulties, and I hope this is something you do when you get the letters or hear people, is what are the challenges that the ministry and the missionaries are facing. It could be stuff right now, and we usually pray for that. This one is representative of one that's a long-term cultural barrier, because what Canada did, similar to the United States, they took all in First Nations kids and sent them to government paid for schools. And they tried to take all the native out of the natives, okay? And so forth. So they couldn't sing, they couldn't use their own names, they couldn't use their languages and so forth and so on. But the shirt is for those thousands of kids who were taken to the school and never returned. Last year was a big announcement that the government had finally come to reparations over all of the thousands of kids that had died at those schools. And they're finding hundreds, up in Kamloops was the last one that quit in like 1970 or something like that. So, anyway, they found over 200 graves there. And there's one, I think, Ontario or Saskatchewan, where they found over 300 graves. And so this is the thing, every end of September is Orange Day in Canada. And so that's what the shirt, every child was supposed to matter. Okay?
Okay, in this summer they attended a NAME staff conference in Red Deer, Alberta, and found this to be very encouraging, reconnecting with other missionaries in NAME and just encouraging one another. And they asked for wisdom, for us to pray for wisdom as they plan for fall youth ministry, for ways to encourage the Native Fellowship, and for a trip that they're planning back to Eastern Canada in the spring to meet with some supporters and supporting churches back there.
The Horva text, this is one where it's like when you're counting things, how do you count an active couple? And so forth, and you're trying to do statistics and stuff like that, okay? He's really active in the church he's in, has been for years and years and years, and he also teaches at the theological school there in Croatia. So.
Okay, and earlier this year, both he and his wife Mira have experienced serious health issues, but because of God's faithfulness, they are both doing well right now because of that, through that. Their son, Momir, I think is the way you pronounce it, had been working with them in the church. He is now, he has moved to Eastern Croatia to provide leadership in a struggling church there. But their grandson, Samuel, serves as a music leader in Misko's church and plans to attend the Theological Biblical Academy where Misko teaches.
Now, Mino doesn't have a chance much to come to the States and so forth, but he's involved with outreach in church planting kinds of things with children's and youth ministries and so forth. He doesn't send too many newsletters from time to time, so it's hard to stay abreast of what he's being challenged with. But.
So he serves and pastors in a local church, as well as runs weekly Saturday Bible meetings in the area for teens and young adults. He also participates in and provides leadership to youth summer camps and English camps, and these camps serve about 400 children and youth each summer. He's also involved in a local community center. The center offers regular programs for children, youth, mothers with small children, seniors, alcoholics, and also to autistic children. Most of them are not believers, so he's asking for prayer for God's direction in this ministry so their quote-unquote clients can know Jesus personally. And they consider themselves clients, not, so.
Okay, the Lloyds, we just had them here last Sunday and so forth. Got a chance to meet all of them, including the new baby. And so they used to be a part of Mark, the aviation ministry that was one place up in Alaska, but they've moved over to Child Evangelism Fellowship, and he does fly kids, team members out to the different villages in Alaska for those CEF weeks, and then once in a while he subs as a MARC pilot as well, and got trained at MATA.
Okay. They are currently on their triannual trip through the lower 48 states. They'll be visiting churches in Washington, Oregon, Colorado, Michigan, and Minnesota, and points in between. And then drive back to Alaska after Christmas. And they ask for prayer for safe travel for them and also for the Good News Clubs that will be running this fall in Alaska. And that's in the public schools up there.
The Mahatkins with SOAR, they a lot of times are stationed out of Alaska, but they were working in eastern Russia and now are working more in the Ukraine with the refugee camps and so forth. We have a opportunity on the 24th of this month for anyone who wants to join the quilting club for soup and socks.
Soup and soap. Soup and soap.
Soup and sew.
Yeah,
Oh yeah,
soup and
okay,
soap.
sewing socks. Okay.
The stockings.
But anyway, it's a chance because we every year do the stuff a stocking for that ministry, okay, and then get it to them. And so October 24th for anyone who wants to help sew. Okay?
Okay, so he has had the opportunity to work in some local Ukrainian refugee shelters, helping meet their physical needs, listening to their struggles and sharing Christ with them. He mentioned that the gift he received from us will help complete the church building project, hopefully before colder weather sets in. So.
McCullough's there over in eastern Washington and working with Fellowship of Christian Athletes, which that's kind of student ministry. And we didn't have a real near-term update on them, so, but another one of those evangelism, discipleship type ministries. Oh, where else?
Morale. Yep.
Oh, okay. Yeah, South America, Argentina, and they're a church planter, okay? I'll let my wife do the more update, because that's, you can read that text.
Okay. So they are on furlough from Argentina. It is their first furlough in 7.5 years, living at this time in Maine. James broke his leg several months ago, and he's still struggling with that. It's slowly healing. He had some problems with infection and stuff, but it's slowly getting better, and hopefully they won't have to do any more surgery. Their two oldest daughters, Hannah and Jamie, are attending Appalachian Bible College in West Virginia. Hannah is pursuing Bible translation work, and Jamie is pursuing a degree in biblical counseling. The whole family, except James, has received permanent residency for Argentina. So that means he has to go fly back to Argentina and get a visa, and hopefully, it's pretty complicated. They're hoping he can get residency by November, but they're not sure. So that would be a big prayer request for them, is that permanent residency would come through.
Okay, the Nyangs in Cameroon. If you get on the list and you get his newsletter, take your glasses if you need them and sit down somewhere and read, because they're not short. He gives you lots of good information. Okay, another one serving with a sports ministry, Athletes in Action. Okay, and evangelism and discipleship as being the core.
So recently, their AIA, Athletes in Action Youth Club, participated in some youth games along with other sports clubs. They did so well that several parents showed interest in having their children attend their club and learn sports and this type of thing. The children in the club also took time to share Christ with children from other clubs. Silas was invited by the Cameroon International Sports Coalition to lead a class of 21 participants in the area of sports chaplaincy at their annual leadership school this year.
Good. Yes.
People need to know that they're in a very dangerous country.
Yep.
Their lives are always in danger.
Yeah. So it was pointed out by Pastor Bill that Cameroon, Africa being Africa, more and more is a dangerous place to live. So safety is always a good prayer item for them. And Mark and Catherine. So you need to get to know this couple, especially Mark, who grew up on the field and so forth. Came back, was a youth pastor for a while, then went out. Actually, he went out and then came back and was a youth pastor, right? And so forth. And is now gathering and recruiting members to go under Ethnos 360 for predominantly unreached people groups of less traveled places of the world, shall we say?
So I didn't have any information, but Mark, where have you guys been visiting lately?
Well, we just got back from Corbin University, where we had a great time engaging the students in the evenings in the dorms, in the afternoons in the classrooms, just sharing with them what remains to be done as far as unreached, unengaged people groups. Also encouraging them, many of them are going into ministry, and just encouraging them with the value of understanding the target people group they're going into, understanding culture and honoring cultures and animism, some of those things that you were talking about, Alex. Just having a grasp of that, not taking any shortcuts in how they do their ministry. So it was a very good time. We have an awesome story that happened from there that I don't have the time right now, but if you want to hear it, it has to do with when we were in Dakota years ago and now, so it's a pretty crazy story. But we just got back late last night from a missions conference in Gate Harbor, where we were dealing with a lot of ethnos missionaries that were there sharing. They're in Papua. We actually were in the training with some of them. They know Abby and Taylor Doki there as well and stuff. And so had a great time. It was a new contact for us, a new church, so we're really looking to the Lord and hoping that He'll open up some other opportunities there. And then tomorrow we meet for Yakima for a 3-day pastors conference. All pastors from Oregon, Idaho, and Washington are gathering. Catherine will be helping lead worship there, and we'll be connecting with a lot of area pastors. So that's a real good contact for us because we're in discipleship, mentoring, mobilizing, training, recruiting, and so the umbrella, member care, the umbrella is broad. But, so be praying about that conference, and then as soon as we get back from that, this is really exciting. We're working with the Miana Baptist Church in Mount Vernon, and there's going to be a missions discipleship, global discipleship youth missions conference, and I'm the key speaker for that. And then we're also working with Matt on that Mission Aviation Training Academy, Gary and Stacy, and we're going to have kids come and tour that and hear what the value of mission aviation is and get some hands-on stuff there at NATA. And so we'll be praying for that conference too. It's all going to be focusing on global evangelism and global discipleship. And so, and then
This next week.
this is just what just happened and what's happening in the next week.
Okay, thank you.
So please be praying. And we sent out a prayer letter Friday with all these prayer requests.
Okay,
So I didn't see it out here, so we need to probably.
haven't seen it yet.
So for those on live stream, if I can kind of review it, Mark and Kathy just got back from a great time at Corbin University in Salem, Oregon, and where they're able to have some dorm type activities, but also encouraging people who are going into ministry to understand the culture and so forth of the people that they're going to, whether it's somewhere in the United States or around the world, and understanding their framework for their truth and how that then can color how you communicate back to them. good time at Gig Harbor and so forth, and the meeting there, and then heading off to Yakima to be with a number of, that's the one with pastors and stuff, and so forth, encouraging them to be globally minded and encouraging and sending. And then a conference being planned at Emmanuel dealing with youth in that. So, did I catch that good enough?
You're busy.
Okay, the Sanfords are people who originally were out in the field under New Tribes when it was called that, came back and have been a major force behind the home office, and then also the Wyoming camp that you can go to and experience what it is like to not know the language, not know the culture, not know the food, and all of that. And you get the Navy way of swimming, learning to swim. You get thrown off the boat, and then you swim or don't. And then, of course, Judy Strand, our longtime homegrown missionary, who is just now wrapping up and is in the midst of retiring. The last number of years have been quite stressful for her because she never knew whether she would be beheaded or whether she would just be struggling. And the last few years has been, okay, if I'm not, she spent a lot of time here when the COVID was happening and she couldn't get back. But then it says, how do you pass on your ministry to somebody else? Okay, she's been diligent in trying to disciple other Fulani people and other African people to Senegalese to, or Nigerian, I should say, to take over what she's been trying to do. And so now that's the struggle, okay, and doing that. You know, the Rittersbachs, the Elliots, Judy, invite them over for dinner or something, and you can really pick their brain about all the different things that happen and so forth and so on. Her thing, God opened up a huge opportunity, because when we first met her, I think she was teaching ag at the high school and so forth, which is what her major was, veterinary medicine. She went out under Sudan Interior Missions to the Fulani right at the time there was an epidemic of their cows, and their cows are their wealth. And so she spent months and months doing hundreds of cows every day, vaccinating. Thousands.
One
Okay?
day I think she said she vaccinated 3,000 cows, but yeah.
So anyway, so that was her introduction to the Fulani people. And after that, her regard and respect was way up here. Okay, and so forth. So they elevated her to this position, which gave her a good platform to speak from. And so God opened up that door, and then, of course, she's been there like 40 years or something like that. So, okay, I should have Bill come up and say something here, but this has been a long time, Ben and Ong. In Thailand, you typically don't say their name unless, I mean, they have these huge names, and so a lot of times you either say just their short last name or you come up with a nickname and so forth. And they pastor a church over there. They've been working with, I think a lot of times with the college kids and things like this, and teaching English to bridge that gap and to create a church atmosphere that is growing and discipling. All right. And Jim and Bev, who are our Awana missionaries. So if you're in Awana, you know all that. The Awana local conference, I think, is the 8th, a week, the end of this week.
Yeah.
up in Mount Vernon and so forth. So we probably know a lot about Awana and the work it does in the kids' life to help them learn and understand Scripture.
Okay,
So-
they had a conference in Spokane yesterday for Eastern Washington, and then the one for Western Washington is in Mount Vernon. That is coming on the 8th, this coming Saturday. But in June, they held 5 Connect meetings, and this was for club directors. And they were very encouraged to hear the testimonies of these directors about serving in the ministry and how it's just, you know, good for the kids, good for the directors, good for their leaders. It's just encouraging to all the way around.
Okay, then we have some mission organizations that we support. Here's the Croatia one that Horvatex are with. Okay, and I don't have anything more to say about that other than, you know, they're preparing ministers and other church workers or just people who want to know more about the Bible. Okay. MATA, which we made some comments on and so forth. Like say, if you want to know more about it, stop by. They're just at the north end of the airport and so forth. They'll be happy to tell you all their ministry and how you can help.
They have a really cool simulator there.
What, a simulator?
They have a really cool simulator there.
Yeah. Yeah, I tried a simulator at Boeing one time, and I managed to crash land a 47. Okay, Nepal Bible College. This is, if you didn't hear Sham Khatri's name, it's because he's now a pastor in Spokane, okay, and so forth. But he was involved with the Nepal Bible College for years and years and years, so we are still supporting that education ministry. Pregnancy Choices up in Mount Vernon, okay? They're under a lot of, you know, any pregnancy choice ministry is now under a lot of pressure. Some of them in various parts of the country have been firebombed and all kinds of hate crimes against them because of a stand that they're taking and a ministry they're providing to women, okay? So, and we support the one up there. Isn't there one more? Okay. Transworld Radio, okay? That's something that I learned about when I was in college and stuff like, and so forth. And we will have a representative here at church to speak during the morning service, not the morning service, but, you know, a little window of time during the morning service about their ministry. So that's coming up on the 23rd. So a number of opportunities. Okay? Now, like I mentioned, we are going to move from ones that we can broadcast to the ones that we aren't, so we want to stop the live stream at this point. I will put a bug in your mind. If you want to know more about how the church is around the world, a magazine we that subscribe to is Voice of the Martyrs. And you will hear lots of areas around the world and the different persecutions of those different areas.